rescued who?
I received an email from a concerned citizen back in early February. I did get a call from the Department of Agriculture asking that I go in and take the dogs as an owner surrender almost and bring them back to the shelter and care for them. We were concerned about their health conditions and also just their socialization and their behavior at that point. So I did arrive at the home. It's a smaller rescue group, so it's a foster home. I was taken aback when I walked in the house because the 4 dogs were all in a pen together in the person's kitchen. A lot of barking, a lot of chaos. The dogs were very bouncy and friendly to see someone coming in, but what I soon realized is trying to take them out of the pen and get into the van, they just kind of shut down.
When the pups first came to the shelter, they were in crates, and upon first glance, they were pretty scared in those crates. In fact, it took 4 of us to be able to pick up the crates and pull them into the area where we would examine them.
My biggest concern when I first walked in and saw them was, oh dear God, the staff is just gonna freak out when they see these poor animals. It wasn't just a behavior rescue, it wasn't just a health rescue, it was the whole package this time. One of the things that I was privy to prior to the rest of the staff here knowing was their hair loss, their conditions, and I do have a couple of photos that I had received from the complainant, and a picture's worth 1,000 words, and one of the photos was of the dog that I now call Duvessa, and then there's just a picture of all the hair loss around her eyes and just that incredibly sad face. Often in this job, you see a face and you see a picture of an animal and you want to help that animal at all costs.
On the day of their actual veterinary exam, Dr. Trahan was nice enough to come in on very short notice and examine the animals for us. That was very soon after their arrival here at the shelter. We were looking for overall body condition. Have they been fed properly? Have they been fed enough? Have they been fed too much? In this case, most of the dogs were actually overweight, which indicates potentially that they didn't get enough exercise or maybe they were being overfed. So a lot of them have body condition scores that were higher than your average.
The 4 dogs were presented to the Bedford Animal Rescue League. I'm the veterinarian at the shelter, and I took a look at these dogs. When they came in, they presented with generalized hair loss over the entire body. They had a generalized lymphadenopathy, which means their lymph nodes were enlarged, indicating that they had an infection that was enough that it was affecting the lymph nodes. When we did diagnostics, we saw demodectic mange, which is a type of bug that'll live in the skin and cause hair loss and predispose to the bacterial infections. The nice thing is they had a good prognosis, but they had to get the appropriate therapy. And appropriate therapy for demodectic mange can sometimes wage out there 6 months. And the big thing is just proper sanitation, proper nutrition, less stress, and being consistent with their therapy, which the Rescue League was able to provide.
Luckily, we have a great team here at the shelter, so as far as working with them and their process through the shelter, I was able to pull in quite a few different people. And we have a great set of volunteers and had them start right away working with them. The girls I definitely thought would come much faster than the boys, just based on my first impressions of seeing them. Had seen them in the kennels, but also needed to evaluate them outside the kennels to really get a good idea of what that was going to look like. But the girls, really, I was thinking a few weeks. We'd be working on their medical issues at the same time, and by the time we really got a handle on that, I thought they'd also be behaviorally ready. The boys, certainly as far as length of time, definitely decided it was going to take them a bit longer, just on how they were reacting to us. Again, we'd be working with their medical issues at the same time, but I had a feeling we'd have that under control a little bit faster than their behavioral needs. They definitely looked like they were going to need a little more hands-on work from us.
Although they had names, the names had changed several times since coming up from the south, and this is only over a couple months. When I was told the girls' names, I asked who's who, and I was told it didn't matter. For me, that's really difficult. Any animal that walks in the door that I'm responsible for bringing into the shelter gets a name. I just feel it's an identity thing, and I think that every animal should have identity here at the shelter. So now, on top of the skin issues and the lack of socialization and the lack of quality of life, they had no identity.
When I first met the pups, I think my reaction was pretty typical of anybody seeing dogs that have come from an unhealthy living situation, behaviorally as well as medically. My thoughts immediately turned to what can we do for them? And it was going to take a team of us, and that's what we do. I was happy they're here, and we're going to take care of them.
Because I had known about these dogs ahead of time and knew what they looked like and kind of knew what we were dealing with, we picked some nice Celtic names. We kind of like to try to do group names if at all possible, and we're coming up on some St. Patrick's Day promotions here at the shelter. So of course, naturally, this turned to let's have them have Irish names, and so they started being called the Irish Pups. Duvessa was probably the worst in terms of her hair loss. Her name means Black Beauty, and we felt that that was appropriate for her. The boys, Galen means calm. He was the most shy of the four, and it doesn't seem really appropriate to name a dog after something shy, so we wanted him to be calm. Declan, translated, means full of goodness, and he was probably the most outgoing of all of them. He marched right out of that crate into the new world. And Kriya just simply means heart.
What we like to make sure with any adoption process is that we have properly counseled people on what is going to have to happen in order for that animal to succeed in a home. I was a part of the adoption process. Kriya and Duvessa went home first. They're girls. They were much more outgoing. They went home with families with other dogs, which is what we wanted for them, to have another older dog in the home. We don't want any surprises for them when they get home. We're not going to say, Declan's perfect, he's going to be a normal dog. With Declan particularly, we described what a flight risk dog looks like. I was part of that process because for Declan, he is a bigger flight risk than Kriya and Duvessa, as is Galen. We all took part in that. There were 4 separate counseling sessions with these people so that they understood the medical. They did have a dog meeting as well. We knew it would be important for him to go home with a dog. They have not all been adopted. The last one is Galen. However, I just received exciting news that he's going to be going home today with one of our senior dog walkers. Our senior dog walkers are a huge piece to the behavioral training and celebrate in the dog's successes the way we do, and they do fall in love. And they do take ownership of the dogs and their successes. So Galen will be going home today. He was, out of the 4, he was the one who was behind behaviorally the most. So we're very excited.
Who rescued who? Was it me? Was it you? I don't know what I'd do if I never found you. Who rescued